Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
Scott?
This week we talk about Critical Role Campaign 2, Episode 112, The Chase Begins.
Yes.
Great episode, but boy, did it seem rough for everybody.
Yeah, there was...
I mean, it was sort of on the edges, and when I thought about doing show prep today, I thought that I would try to pick out the specific moments that I was thinking of, and I was like, I don't want to seem like I'm nitpicking. But, like, there just seemed small moments here and there where they were trying to, it was like knocking the dust off. Yeah. It was sort of like when we came back after the 4-month break.
Yeah.
Small bits of that. Off the bat, the first big question is, did we tell Cree about Molly's death?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, yeah, like 100%.
Yeah. Ford took Cree aside and...
Yeah.
I totally think Jester should have used sending on Molly.
So, the fact that she didn't, and that the group was trying to dissuade her from doing so, proves my speculation that there's going to be an argument about killing it.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw the foundation of that, for sure, planted in the first half hour of this episode.
Yeah.
Also, this is another thing in the knocking the dust off the car, basically. When Sam rolled a natural 1 on his...
yeah.
I don't remember what check it was. But Matt was like, well, reliable talent, but Beth is a halfling.
Yes. But, in fairness, Beth has rolled a natural 1 before, and everyone reminded her, and she was like, no, I'm taking it anyway. It can just be like, Sam doesn't want to play with, take advantage of that thing. Because he doesn't have to re-roll the natural 1. He just can.
That's true. That's true.
And so he has already set precedent that he still wants to take the natural 1 if it comes.
Yeah.
A halfling rogue,
Well, that's the
all you need to throw in there is 2 levels of divine or wizard.
Yeah, well, a halfling rogue with lucky feet. Well, a halfling with the lucky feet, divine or wizard. And then the halfling racial feat, where you can grant your reroll to other people. Is the luck manipulator build.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I think, and I'm not sure who said it initially, I think it might have been Liam or Laura who said Molly gone.
Yeah.
But Ashley's the one that picked it up. When they were like, well, what are we going to call him now? And my vote is for Molly gone.
Molly gone is, yeah.
Yep. We also get a discussion of whether or not Vess knew about, like, a debate between them. What does Vess know? When did she know it?
Yeah, and we still haven't gotten those answers.
True. Not even from Vess when they confronted her about it.
Exactly.
Not knowing how long time has passed in the game. I think is getting to be of real concern.
Yeah, and it's about to be an even bigger concern.
You think so?
We'll get to that near the end.
Okay. And my question for everybody out there is, did the exchange about the clothes commissions and the armor commissions, does that make like people who have Etsy stores sweat? Like, does that make them break out in hives hearing shit like that? Because, I mean, Taliesin was right. You know, these things take time.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of economic studies where adding bodies, adding hands to a job doesn't always increase productivity.
Right.
In fact, there comes a point where adding hands decreases productivity.
Yep.
And I think, my personal opinion is, if Jester comes back and says, "Look, can you get that for me faster?" She already paid him double what they asked for.
Yeah.
But part of me is also like, well, no good deed goes unpunished. If you overpay,
yep,
that's on you.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, I was about to brush past it, and you have Henry in your notes.
Yeah. I think it was a big enough hit, like people are talking about it, It was okay. It was a one-off NPC for me, but the cast made such a big deal about it. I'm sure,
Well, I think they were enjoying his voice.
Yeah. In the whole demeanor that Matt put forth.
Yeah. I think this is that exchange.
Highly intelligent crabgrass, though.
Okay, so I think we got a little bit of an interpretation of Matt's, or a glimpse of Matt's interpretation of the spell, because the spell does not impart intelligence,
correct,
to these plants. But at the same time, the players are asking pertinent information.
Mm-hmm.
And it, in theory, is within the purview of the plant to know.
Yeah.
And plants definitely know, like they are aware of day-night cycles. Plants move
right
to follow the sun. So does it know how? Does it keep count?
Yeah. I mean, does it keep count? How long is its memory? I mean, is it got human level memory? Is it got goldfish level memory?
Which goldfish actually have pretty good memory.
Well, yeah. There's a saying there.
Yes. Yes.
Is it like? I think the thing that struck me is like in my mind, if I'm running a game, I don't think a plant would know digging from clawing the way up. It just knows the earth moved, was disturbed.
No, it would know digging from coming upwards.
Okay. I guess it would depend on the proximity.
Because it's a matter of that vibration starts in my roots and reaches my top, or it starts near my trunk and then I feel it in my roots. Like they would know up from down. And plants that they've taken to the International Space Station, they do better when they have them in rotating growth things to simulate gravity, so the plant knows which way to grow. Otherwise, it's a mess.
Okay. Okay.
So they do know.
Fair enough.
They know up from down. So
Okay, I was not aware of that. So fair point. I concede.
yeah, I follow a lot of NASA stuff. Yeah, that moment to me was a perfect example of what's great at the table,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily for the audience.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's probably plenty in the audience who loved it too, but
Yeah.
I was kind of like, for me, it was
Yeah.
okay. Although I did appreciate the notion of she's talking to the network of grids.
Yes.
Because that's also biologically accurate.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, there were a lot of things in there that were interesting. But yeah, and I love that Matt sort of put a light on the plant doesn't actually understand what it's saying. Not really.
Yeah.
And I did love gestures. That's why Essex floats all the time. That's not why Essex floats all the time.
He's got a heart of gold.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And so does Ford.
Essex, yeah. Yeah. But one important detail that we get when they get to Vestarogna's tower is the revelation of the imp.
Yeah.
Which is significant. And I'm trying to decide what the significance of that is. Because in theory, it's a familiar.
Yeah.
But rules as written, you can only get an imp as a familiar if you are a Pact of the Chain warlock.
Right.
So is Vest...
Or you make a deal with an imp. Or some devil. That is accounted for in rules as well.
Yeah.
Under the stat log.
So do we think that Vest might be multi-class warlock, or do you think it's a deal that she made?
No, I think if anything, she's making deals with devils over warlock.
But it kind of reminded me of...
You have to remember she is the protege of Delilah Briarwood.
Yeah, but it kind of reminded me of the Happy Fun Ball.
Yeah.
The Folding Halls of Halas, where he had the devil locked up.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, whether she's making deals with devils for a familiar, or she's just dealing with devils and purchased one as a servant, she's making deals with devils.
Yeah.
In my mind, in my head canon, I don't think she's a multi-class warlock.
Yeah. Well, there's also another possibility.
Okay.
That it is a spy that she knows about and tolerates. It could be that every mage tower has an imp.
I think we would have seen evidence of that before now.
They can be invisible at will.
It's true.
They can shape change into spiders.
Yeah, I still think we would have seen, if Matt was saying something like that, there would have been some kind of indication with the number of towers that they've visited, with the number of
I mean, what made the two?
Personal homes, yes, but not.
Are you counting Ormond Haas?
Yeah.
Fair.
And thank you. I was blanking on his name. That's why. But yes, I do think it's, to me, she's got some kind of entreaty with the devil somewhere, at least one, if not multiple. You know, she's either, you know, whatever, dealing with devils with, you know, demonology or.
So do you think, if that is the case, do you think the Hells want Aor to be found? Because the lore we've gotten is that the devils and the gods got together to bring down Aor.
Yeah.
So do you think Hell wants it found, or do you think Hell wants it to remain hidden?
I think Hell wants it to be found for one reason only.
Okay.
So yeah, you team up with someone to take down the threat. Well, now all the stuff that made them a threat is there and unguarded. I want that for my side, so that I can use it against the others, the enemy.
I could see that.
You know, that's just standard operating procedure. You know, in that kind of a situation.
And that seems to be the dynamic that Matt has hinted at in Jorah's.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, Jorah's demons are bad. Devils are okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, I buy that. They talk to Vess, and it comes down to, let's hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
And they drop that Puma is making the armor.
Yeah, and going with your kicking the dust off kind of theory, this episode, they are really good at alienating people and being off-putting to people.
Well, I mean, that is simply as Caleb put it when he was talking about his dynasty clothes getting all mud. All that is old is new again.
Yeah, this seems... I guess it's more... This seemed more blunt force than collateral.
You know, it's also the first time that Caduceus has had a hand in it.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's more, they directly did this rather than did something and indirectly did it.
Fair.
So it seems a little more dire, both with Puma and stressing him, and they all felt bad about it. But it did not stop Bo or Ford from encouraging Veth to push for him to be pushed harder for the flask.
Yeah.
So how bad did they really feel?
Yeah.
I mean, Beth was like, no, no, do it, just get the flask. Okay, and then Cad chimed in, and he's like, yeah, no, and she's like, yeah, no, don't work. Much to Pumat's relief, but
yeah,
if Bo and Ford had their way, he would have been stressed for that extra hour to get that class done and had more stress on him.
Yeah. I also felt for Matt. When Jester messaged the Cobalt Reserve in Zadash, and he expressed, basically, it would be nice to have you. What have you? I'm like, ooh, love triangle, and this, that, and the other thing. And he had to come out and clarify his NPCs' feelings, so that things didn't get thrown off the rails.
Not everything is a result of that. Okay, we're not that Freudian.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it reminded me of another thing that I didn't put in my notes that I called and was revealed in this episode. And we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So, in addition to stressing out Pumat and putting unneeded pressure on him from the Cobalt Assembly, and we've talked about this multiple times since the return from the break, and that is Yeza is getting more and more and more uncomfortable with what's going on. And they totally rip him a new one mentally.
Yes.
And it starts with Beth turning into Bess.
Yeza's Inquisition.
Yes. But then they go in about the chair, which was just a joke. But Ford, almost like an interrogation, almost like, trying to intimidate. How many souls have gone, and he's like, I don't know, how many? And, Travis has just got this, like, grin on his face. I'm like, you're an asshole. I'm like, more and more, it makes me sad that he didn't take the Oath of Redemption, because it just means he plans to continually have evil tendencies.
Yeah. Lawful good. Yeah.
He hasn't been lawful good since before the first beacon was found in their hands.
But the biggest moment of the episode, arguably the biggest moment of the episode, is Jester and Yasha talking about Bill.
Before we hit that, real quick, the one point you reminded me of that I didn't have in my notes. When they send Yeza and Luke back, they don't contact Yesa. They contact Wadsworth.
Yeah.
And I said, when they tip to the platinum, they're getting him so they can keep using that tower without the master knowing, blackmail, bribing the help. And that's exactly what they did.
Yep. And he accommodated them. I will make sure that the master doesn't see.
He got 2 platinum. Fuck yeah, he's going to accommodate them. I called it.
I also love that Beth's like, I hate that guy.
Yes. And that's strictly because he's a goblin.
Yep.
She does, though, however, not recant, but, reassure Yeza he's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So she may hate him, but she still realizes he's a good goblin.
Yeah. I also think it's important to have that language in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, Jester and Yasha discussing Bo. And part of me kind of wishes that when Jester was tiptoeing around who Bo would share a bed with, that Yasha had said, well, she could share a bed with you. Or when she's like, are you suggesting she share a bed with me? In the moment, I was like, share a bed with you, Jester? Yeah. And turn it back on her. But she didn't.
No. So I got some real beginning of Bax Keyleth vibes from this. Parallels. So, while Vax had the thing with Gilmore and had to break that up, Yasha's still holding on to Zulala. So there's another person fighting, who do I give my emotions to? They both talk to Laura's character about it. And they're both, and they're like, and Laura's character is like, yes, she likes you. You're an idiot. Go for it,
Yeah.
And it's basically that again. And I'm not sure if that says more about Laura or about Marisha and how those things play out. Because really the only substitution is Ashley for Liam.
Yeah.
Um,
I hadn't thought of that, but I see that, yeah.
Yeah, it gave me, those kind of vibes, from back in campaign one, way back then. When that relationship was starting, or at least at the same point. Obviously, both relationships have started before the groundwork for them.
Yeah.
But when it starts becoming an official thing. But I really liked it. It basically cemented the first in-game relationship. Like, there's a lot of ships out there.
Yeah.
Yabo, Forrester, Widow Jess. This is the first one in-game. Okay, this is happening.
I mean, arguably, Forrester was in-game because Jester was pursuing him, was crushing on him hard.
So there's a difference between one person having feelings for another and a relationship happening.
Accurate.
Yes. I'm just going to leave that there.
Yes. I will say, on my initial watch, I missed a phrase.
Okay.
Which made me later perhaps read more into a moment than is true.
Okay.
And the phrase that I missed on my Thursday watch live, or rather, I perhaps didn't miss it, but it didn't sink in.
Okay.
And it didn't, was Jester saying that Bo and Yasha are both a couple of marshmallows because they're warm and gooey on the inside.
Yes.
And later, we have what I, on Thursday, had interpreted as a Widow Jest moment on the icebreaker when Caleb says, I'm going to be doing spell research. And Jester says, I'm going to sit with Caleb and draw. And I went, okay. And then Liam's like, well, what are you drawing?
Yeah.
Hot chocolate with marshmallows. And he picked up, he's like, what does that mean? Or well, he has some dicks, no marshmallows. And then he's like, he perked up and he's like, what is that?
Yeah.
I thought that would have meaning.
The two marshmallows cuddled.
Yeah. And on Thursday night, I was like, oh, that's him and her.
So you missed the with wings and stabs?
No.
Oh.
I interpreted that as a deflection.
Okay.
That she was spending time with Caleb, drawing and thinking of him and her.
Okay.
And then he said, well, what's the meaning behind that? And as a deflection, she put it on
Okay.
Bo and Yasha.
So let me ask you this, since we're talking about Widow Jess real quick. Rewind a little bit in the episode. They're talking about their stuff and getting it, and Caduceus mentions he has no armor at this point, because his armor is getting upgraded, which led into the whole stressing of everybody.
We have to protect the healer.
You're the only healer.
Yeah.
Now, given Jester's proclivity for one-upmanship,
well, and
imagined
also
rivalry.
And also the fact that the last major fight that they were in, when they lost Caduceus, she was the one keeping Caleb specifically alive.
So Caleb saying that, I was like, oh, is he like trying to distance himself from Widow Jest? Is this like a Caleb panic push people away thing?
I could buy that. After his night in the tower, yeah.
Yeah. His old things are new.
Yeah.
Let's push that away, I'm getting too comfortable with this. I'm making her sticks and...
The other possibility is he has acknowledged the possibility of a relationship and is now testing the waters in good-natured ribbing.
Okay. Yeah, that's possible. I took it as the deflection, one, because of the night in the tower, but two, like he and Jester been getting closer and closer, and then they had dinner with Astrid. And between the night in the tower and that, he's just kind of like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
That's where my mind went.
Well, and especially, like, he's probably particularly confused because, like we discussed before, like, he wants to believe that his friends are redeemable because that makes him redeemable. And Astrid showed a glint of that possibility in that dinner. But it also, he hasn't dealt with the fact that she is directly involved as an accomplice to the murder of his parents.
Yeah. Or that he's an accomplice to the murder of her parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that they are accomplices to the murder of Wolf's parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, if you think about it, is sort of like an extra layer of fuckery from Trent.
Yeah.
Because it ensures, well, it helps ensure that these potential rivals or replacements, however you want to look at it, don't unite.
Yeah.
To come after you. Because there's always going to be that bit.
Yeah.
Between them. So, yeah. But to Pumat and his how quickly he can work.
Mm-hmm.
The Pumats can do 200 gold pieces of labor a day on magic items because it's 50 gold per person working.
Okay.
Which makes Caduceus' armor 800 gold.
Okay.
Which I think is less than what a +1 armor would be.
Yeah,
because it's a +1 armor is a rare magic item.
But okay, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're much more knowledgeable about the creation rules. But is that not starting from scratch? Like
Yes.
Making the armor and adding the enchantment, not just adding the enchantment to already existing armor?
Yes.
So that would cut that time down, you know. So, okay.
Which is where I was going with that.
Okay.
That he probably discounted it based on the fact that the armor is already
in existence. Yeah. Okay.
Just
so we're on the same page.
Yeah. Because I always like to call out moments where Matt makes a decision that is both reflective of the rules, but also interpretation and
Yeah, definitely.
So, but after that, Vest teleports, leaves them holding the bag, literally. He's like, well, she could have offered to take us. It seems like a waste. Which lays out, like, for me, that solidified the relationship that we're going to have in the North.
Yeah. And, when he said that, my brain was like, yes, they've proven themselves enough to be hired, but isn't that just a test of your resourcefulness? Making sure you're the right one for the job.
Yeah. Well, and like from her perspective, she gave up her whole evening
to come back and talk to them.
Well, to come down, crack the whip over Puma, and actually contribute. To the effort. Which arguably is 2 spell slots and 8 hours of her life that she just put into this.
Yeah. And got nothing from it.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Prove to me you were worth that investment.
Yeah. But we go to break.
Yep.
Which I was happy. I was like, when he's like, we're going to take a break there, and I was like, okay, I was right. They weren't getting to the north before break.
Right. Which, I had initially thought they were just going to fast forward and go north. Yeah. But when we talked last time, I was like, they could easily do everything before break, head north at the break, random encounter combat.
Although I don't think it was a random encounter. I think, now he was having them roll a die, but I think a 1 on that die is Ukatoa.
Yeah. No, okay. But it's still random if they had never rolled a 1.
Fair.
I think that was set to take place somewhere up there, and if it hadn't happened on that journey, if they had rolled well enough to get to the town, it would have happened right after they left that town.
Yeah.
It was like, you've got these 2 windows. If it happens here, great. If it happens after,
Yeah.
If I miss this window, I've got this one.
Kind of thing. Well, and we also don't know what that table's doing behind the screen.
Yeah.
Because it could be a different table every day.
Yeah. It could be, yeah. Very much.
So the Avantika encounter is a 1 on this table, but by this table, it's 1 through 3.
Yeah. Yeah, he could have been like, and he did say 7 to 12 days, which is what accounts for the speeding up, slowing down on the table. But it could be exactly what you say. Like every day, the chance of Avantika popping up increases.
Yeah.
So that if you roll well, you're not going to hit her for the town. But every day you drop 1, there's a higher chance that she's going to end up there.
Yeah. The icebreaker did not disappoint me.
No.
We had talked about how what I expected it to be, and it was basically exactly what I expected it to be.
Yep.
So I was very pleased with that.
And as soon as they get on the boat, we have a scene, which we've been asking about since Ford took his level 3 paladin.
Yeah. 4 episodes ago?
Yeah. 4 episodes when they became level 13 and he took paladin.
No, it wasn't 4 episodes ago.
What, 3?
Because Traveler Con, I think, was episode 101. Or one? No. It has been at least 4. Yeah.
And we were completely wrong.
In our defense, it's homebrew.
It's homebrew, and it was never released to the public until the day after he took it.
Yeah. Now, I had written in my note, is this why the delay? And you interpreted it, that's probably why, because Matt was working out.
Because they waited till he was on the open sea to give him the oath of the open sea.
Yeah, that too. I mean, you shouldn't need to wait for that, but I was thinking more of it was delayed because Matt was still designing it.
Mm. Yeah.
And my initial reaction when Matt posted the links and I read it was not entirely positive.
Right.
Um,
It's a pirate paladin.
but it's not pirate, and that's my problem.
Yeah.
Because there's not. It assumes a good alignment, which really only devotion and arguably redemption have that baked in.
Yeah.
Like vengeance is not good aligned.
Correct.
Conquest, not good aligned.
Ancients isn't.
No. And like to me, the flavor text, most of it seems to indicate like Oath of the Open Sea to me is it's going to be pirates. It's going to be and like or people like Bill Turner or even Elizabeth Swann.
Okay. I was thinking the Dread Pirate Roberts, but
Wesley, yes. We don't know much about Cumberbund or
right
the guys before, but yeah, exactly. And like some of the spell choices are great. I think they fit.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem with it, and I have since mellowed in my negative reaction.
Okay.
But one thing still sticks in my craw, and that is the level 7 ability is basically 2/3 to 3/4 of the freedom of movement spell. And at first that really irked me. But if the character were a full spellcaster that had access to that spell, they would be able to get it at 7th level.
Right. So
in this sense, is this too much of a power curve over the party? It's not. And that was my initial reaction. Was this isn't even. But the other thing that sort of irks me is it's on the spell list. It's an oath spell.
Yeah.
At 13th level. Freedom of movement. And it's like you're going to give... So basically, they can have 3 people. Either under the effects or most of the effects of freedom of movement. Which is super powerful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, 7th level they get roughly 2/3 of the spell, and then at 13th level they get the spell. That's just like when the Investigator Rogue came out. I had mentioned that I had an issue with their 3rd level ability, which when they're detecting lies or investigating stuff, the minimum they can roll is 8. But then
it's reliable talent.
10. It's minor life, and you were like, well, yeah, but it's just early, So it's kind of the same thing. You get a partial benefit before the regular benefit.
Except I would argue the partial benefit's better than the benefit, because the aura is the paladin and one other person.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. But to me, like I thought about doing my own build of this, but I thought that if we were going to do that, then it'd probably be better as its own video.
Yeah.
But I think what I've come down on is I would drop one of the channel divinities. I don't know which one, because part of me thinks the Marine Layer one is awesome. and like
Oh yeah, I love that one.
perfectly thematic. And my only criticism of it is and this is arguably the wrong way to go with it from a game balance perspective, is I think the area is too small.
See, for me, mine is that I feel like he should be able to move its anchor to something besides himself. Because I'm just envisioning, the pirates walking out of the mist. But if it stays centered on you, you can't be walking out of the mist.
See, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. If you want that effect, I would swap out Expeditious Retreat for Fog Cloud.
And I would be okay with that.
If you want that effect, that's what I would do. But like for me, the reason it's too small is because
it will mask a ship.
Yep. Yep. If you're on the open sea and he does that, there's just a 40-foot cloud. And in theory, that is the length of a longship. So your ship might fit within those dimensions. Unless you're at one end, now you've got half the boat sticking out of the fog cloud.
Yeah.
But it's right there. See the ball of fog? Yeah, just shoot at that.
Yeah.
So like I would make it 50 to 100 feet in every direction.
Okay.
Like a true cloud bank. So the channel divinity that I would swap in is I would call it something like one with the ship, or something that connects the paladin to the mode of conveyance.
Okay.
Ship, or even, and I wouldn't, like, my first thought of this was to make it ships only, but I was like, that's a little narrow. Widen it to all vehicles. So any vehicle that the paladin is on, he can use this channel divinity, or he or she can use this channel divinity. The vehicle now counts as a creature for the purposes of your aura and spell casting.
Ooh. Okay.
And then that would allow you, and then I was going to replace Expeditious Retreat in this build, replace Expeditious Retreat with Longstrider. So that you could channel divinity. Your vehicle is now a creature, Longstrider on the...
Yeah.
And now you have the Wesley. I don't think he's using the wind we're using.
Yeah. He's getting us. Inconceivable.
Yes, exactly. And that allows for that kind of moment.
I would love that. Yeah. And I think, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the other one that's there. I can push people once a turn when I hit them.
Yeah.
It just, I get where it's coming from, but it just doesn't have the feel of the rest of the subclass to me.
Well, in the spell choices, you can kind of do that with some of the spell choices.
Yeah.
So I get why it's there, but and I think so. This is we've talked about this before when we discussed the Blood Hunter a long time ago. That Matt designs his stuff to fit his table.
Yeah.
And when you're a DM and you are homebrewing something for your table, for your world, for a player, you can do things that don't make sense, that are overpowered, underpowered. Like the levels of this are, like, to me, this feels very much like they didn't playtest any of this.
Yes. Which they said.
Yeah.
Which was stated. This is completely unplay tested.
Yeah. I'm also not a fan of the level 20 ability.
Right. Well, we'll see how the oath plays out. We'll see what Travis does with it.
But we get the ice floe with the wreck, and we get Matt scaring the hell out of Travis with the exhaustion and giving them all a point of exhaustion.
And how long were we out there before we hit that?
Yeah, about an hour. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Because that would basically give them, in his mind, it's like, well, that's 6 hours and we're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we shall see if I'm correct about Matt using Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Yeah.
Arctic survival stuff.
Right.
I don't think we got enough of that.
Not yet.
We did get a scroll of protection against aberrations, which is going to come up.
Yes.
I felt like when Matt gave him that, I was like, I was flashed back to the Colbert Red Nose Day one shot. When Colbert gets this thing and he's like, oh, so I'm going to be looking at this later. Because you wouldn't give this to me unless it was coming out.
The video game mentality.
Well, I mean, it's there because D&D did it first.
Yeah. Sorry, I just flashed in my mind the South Park. The Simpsons already did that.
Yeah. But we get Avantika.
Yes, and we haven't mentioned her in a while, but back when they first left the coast and started heading up was, I think, the last time we talked about it, and we said they're going north on the water. Is this where Avantika is going to return?
Yeah.
We
had talked about
this. We've been saying since she died that she's going to return.
Yeah.
But that was the last time we met. I remember us mentioning her.
Yeah.
When they go to the water there, is that going to be her return? And it was. So I'm going to count that as half a point because we didn't say it is going to be. We're going to say that's the next potential.
Yeah.
As far as, if you're scorekeeping.
Yeah. We talked about when she was killed and that we didn't think that was the last we were going to see of her. We talked about several options.
Yes.
Of her return. Undying Warlock. Right?
Undying Warlock, Deathlock, because that had just recently been released. The Undead Warlock, like the true Undead Warlock, like the Lich of Warlocks. We talked about Revenant. At that time, the Wild Mount guide was not out, and so we didn't know about the Hollow Ones in that, which is, what
Jameti
was, and, is she one of those? So there's a lot of ways she could have come back. And I think it's very, very important that she did come back. And the reason why is because she put one of the Cloven Crystals in the thing. This is why in the fight, when they tried to off Orly, they tried to drag Ford off. This is why they tried to drag him off the boat this time instead of just attacking him. He put a crystal in, so he has to be there for something else to release Ukatoa.
Yeah.
They need him alive.
Or they need him there in some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And the way...
And they have to have a third person put the third crystal in, because I think that's why there was I think now, looking back, I don't think the 3 people under each thing was 3 warlocks, like I had previously thought, one of each pact. I think it's the 3 people who put the crystals in, who have something else to do to release them.
Yeah. And we know she's still a warlock because she's got Armor of Agathis on.
Yes.
And that's going to be hella funny. When Ford hits her and takes 25 cold damage. He's going to go, what?
That's what I've been doing.
I mean, in his fight in the fighting pits, that almost won him the fight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's gonna be rough.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I kind of hope a situation happens where Jester gets up in Avantika's face. Because she's cold resistant.
Yeah.
So Jester just does all this damage to her and drains the armor of Agathis off of her.
Yeah.
And in theory, Ford can back away and be shooting Eldritch Blast at her now.
Or even better, spiritual weapon or inflict wounds through the duplicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
A much better way to go through the temporary hit points there.
That's fair. And not with the clutch hypnotic pattern.
Yes. Yes. And Avantika targeted Dispel Magic on the Amethyst, dropping out the crystal.
Well, no, it was the Scion of the Deep that did that.
Okay.
That's
right. That's right.
That was the beauty of this encounter, of the setup.
Yeah.
Is it begins with the crustaceans coming up. And then at the end of the turn, Scion of the Deep comes up at the other side of the ship with the crystal, finds
where the cloven crystal is.
Points, casts Dispel Magic, shatters, everything falls out.
Yep.
And that just like tension up. Next thing that happens, Avantika comes up.
Yep.
And then of course Travis loses his shit. But yeah, that whole setup was just.
But that's why Avantika said, "Darling, we have work elsewhere."
Yeah. And I want now.
It wasn't because Ford was a good lay. It's because they need to sacrifice him to release Ukatoa.
Yeah.
Like the table thought.
Yeah. Matt said, "You're a lucky SOB," when he rolled a natural 20 for a total of 21.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious what he rolled for Avantika.
Yeah.
Was it 19 or 20? Like, did he
was it a natural 24-20?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what her stats are, you know.
Yeah, we don't. But I don't. She didn't. She's not using. She's using a rapier.
Yeah, which is Dex.
Yeah, and she always was.
Yeah.
Although her sword is now a sword of fathoms, where before it was not.
Correct.
So. What if she uses it and uses Summer's dance powers? Because we talked about the blades that he's eating, in theory, can be given. Ukatoa could be giving those out again.
Yep.
So what if her Sword of Fathoms, the rapier, has Summer's dance, where she's and misty stepping and everything?
That would be amazing. I would love that. Not gonna lie. Honestly, I kind of hope Avantika wins.
Takes the crystal and leaves.
Takes the crystal. And here's why. Do we go after Avantika? Do we go after Molly?
Do we do what Vess is paying us to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, they go to Aor. They get the weapon that can kill a god. Rather than go in and hope they can defeat a god if she gets it open, go get the weapon that can kill a god.
I mean, that's certainly Caleb's argument.
Yeah.
And like, to me, for the Tarask to come, it is easier if Avantika takes the crystal in this battle.
Yeah.
It's going to be...
But if she takes the... See, again, I don't think it's just the crystal. I think she's going to try and take the crystal and Ford.
She may have just wanted to torture him. You may be right. It may be that they need them, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. But in any case, we will see on Thursday.
Yep.
And we will see you guys next week, I guess.